Junior finals of this tournament. This is very awesome and very cool of you guys. We should clap. Alright, my name is Raymond. I go by he, him pronouns. I will be carrying around today. On the panel with me from left to right are
Grace, I go by she, her.
Jasmine, also chooses.
Alan, I go by him. I'll also be doing a time signal today.
Elaine, I use and run, but just refer to the panel as a whole.
Alright, thank you so much. Let's do a quick roll call. Although I do see everybody here, you can just introduce yourself while you're at it. So, speaker position, your POI preferences, your pronoun preferences if you'd like. Starting with OG.
So OG, first speaker over Leung, Gia, your pronouns please, and verbal QI.
Second speaker on OG, Austin, and pronouns for both KOS.
OO.
Speaking first for OO, Owen, even pronouns.
CG.
Government with Alex and
CO.
Hey guys, first speaking for CEO, Jared, he and Merle. Second speaking on closing opposition, Leung and his slide as well.
Alright, thank you so much. In that case, without further ado, I'd like to call upon the Prime Minister to deliver their speech, not exceeding 5 minutes. They're here.
Okay, I don't know if I'm going to use the microphone throughout my speech, but I'm going to start with it. First, I want to thank my awesome partner, Austin, and Orcom for making this today. It was super fun. Okay. My timer starts on my first word. Panel, on government side, you live and die on your own terms. On government side, you are able to make autonomous decisions that provide you with the most fulfillment in your life, which is of utmost importance for an elderly person. And this is why I'm so proud to propose. So getting right into it, I want to model by saying that your consciousness is your soul, it's your personality, things like that. And this is not, and also living in this world does not mean immortality, because as I mentioned, it's an emotion. You can leave as long as you want, whenever you want, but this definitely would likely mean that you die. So getting right into it. First, we want to say that this will provide you with the most fulfillment. Why is this? 2 reasons. First of all, you get personal relationships on our side of the house. We want to remind you that, quite frankly, if you stayed in the world, you would likely be very alone. You wouldn't have your family as they already passed away, and every time you walk down the street that you used to stroll with your child, or every time you sit on the couch that you used to sit on with your wife, you are reminded of their deaths. Yes, I'll take it.
That same wife that you were married to for 40 years probably doesn't expect you to go back to your youth and to just date other women.
So basically what he's trying to say is that if you try and get with someone after they die, your wife is going to feel like neglected. But I think that if your wife truly loved you, she would be fine with you dating other things, or other people, or getting whatever makes you the most happy. So I think that if your wife would probably be fine with you remarrying after their death, or finding happiness in other things after their death, because they want what's best for you when you are, such an elderly person and you can't get them back anyway. So as I was saying, you'll constantly be reminded of your past that you cannot get back, and of the past that is generally tainted with negative connotations, because you are constantly reminded of the people that you lost. In our world, you can be able to find new relationships with another person that you've already sparked a relationship with. What does this mean on opposition side? That you can see that these people, when you're living in the world and you choose to stay, you will not get to pursue the relationship that you've already kind of started in that other world. What does this mean? You will probably regret it to some extent, because you didn't get to pursue a relationship that you were actually starting to get invested in. But also, you were constantly reminded of the relationships that you had that died. So we think that you get the most fulfillment in personal relationships on our side of the house. But second, we want to say the strongest point actually on government side is that you get the most fulfillment in life through autonomy. What do you mean by this? Your bodily and mental autonomy is better on our side of the house. What do you mean? You can live your life on your own terms. You can choose when you want to leave, but you can walk and you can talk and learn in a way that you never could if you had stayed in your elderly body. What do I mean by this? I mean, just think about it. When you are elderly and you wouldn't be able to have the physical and mental capabilities, you feel trapped in a body that doesn't resonate with your soul, that doesn't resonate with all the things that you still want to fulfill, and all the things that you still believe in, and all the things that you still want to do. You have more bodily autonomy, and you can choose how to move, and you can choose what you want to do in a way that you cannot. And all the things that you never got to do in the time, like on your plan, like your time on this earth, all the dreams that you were never able to fulfill because you didn't have the physical and mental capability to do so, or you didn't have enough time because you can't choose to die in your own terms, which I'm going to get more into later, is all presented to you on opposition side of the house, not on government. You have as much time as you need or want to on this planet Earth to fulfill new things. The closure is so important because for elderly people, their lack of autonomy is what constantly eats at their quality of life in these years. What do I mean by this? When you eat medicine more than you eat food, no thank you. When you constantly limit what you do because you do not want to risk getting injured, and when you can't sit comfortably or even live comfortably because of the immense amount of back pain that you have, the quality of life that you are going to have is not going to be good. It's not going to be, even subpar for many people, especially in the later years of their life. Now, we don't believe that this is extreme because we think many elderly people deal with these physical and mental restraints. The last thing that we want to touch upon is that overall happier death. What do I mean by this? Well, we first want to clarify that you would still be able to develop connections and bonds in your time in the virtual world. So, we still give you the closure of getting to, develop bonds and saying goodbye to them eventually. So then why do we provide you a happier death? Well, first of all, you get to die when you want to. You get to die with complete dignity, which means that you have achieved what you want from life, you have received the closure that you need, you've been able to say goodbye to the people that you had formed and developed connections with in the virtual world, and you have been able, like for example, if you stay in the world, sure, we're gonna assume that you would be able to have some amount of limited relationships in that scenario as well, but you wouldn't be able to say goodbye to them in the same way that you would in our side of the house. You wouldn't be able to still do things that you would want to do because you get to determine exactly when and where you die. Additionally, you don't die with the mental and physical restraints of an elderly person. And you get to, die with that kind of dignity that a lot of people believe that for elderly people is extremely important. So what have I done for you? I provide what you've gotten more fulfillment, and you've also gotten to die and live with dignity and on your own terms. And that is why I'm so proud to propose.
All right, thank you for the remarks. And now to call upon the leader of opposition to deliver their speech. Please here.
Go. Wait, can I clip it on? Am I audible? Is that loud? Is that good? I'll just hold it. On the brink of death, I would definitely want to listen to Raymond's music one last time. But that makes me realize one thing, that the more and more I listen to it, the more and more I would become bored. The more and more I would hate my very existence just because I have to listen to the same thing every single day. There's two arguments I want to then forward in my speech. Firstly, it is incredibly difficult to define humanity, and this decision is going to be one that engulfs every decision you make and make you regret your existence for this entire time. The second argument then is on how you cannot replicate memories and how you force yourself into internalizing your guilt of betraying your loved ones in your life. These two both clash with government's points. Firstly, what does government tell us? They provide two key ideas. Firstly, that you're able to choose your own terms of death, which is far better because you're able to understand when you die. I think this is very untrue, and to many extents, it's probably more damaging to yourself to betray the individuals of life that you have loved. Because crucially, opening government correctly identifies that if you continue to live your life, you live every day in pain, realizing that you cannot replicate the memories that you had with your ex-spouse and with your child. What this then means that if you do choose to transfer, you're going to continue with this pain, and you will continue with the guilt, and probably regretting that because they didn't make this decision, they probably didn't expect you to, because if they really wanted to see you in the future, they would make the decision as well. Second, they claim that you're able to have autonomy through the actions you take. But I would say that this physical autonomy doesn't outweigh the mental autonomy that you lose. Because under this assumption, if you enter this world, we say that it's impossible to come to a conclusion and come to the decision of leaving. It is one that is incredibly coercive and will mean that you will live a substantial amount of time in incredible amounts of pain. What is my first argument then? I want to question what humanity is and what morality means and why it's so important to live a fulfilling life. The premise of this is that in life, And the meaning of life exists through death, and blurring the lines of morality is difficult because oftentimes it is coercive and one that will damage your own opinions and your own ability to live in this virtual world. The first thing I want to question then is, why is this decision going to be coercive to continue living? Why will you be forced to live a life that you never wanted to, or possibly don't want to live, but just do it because of expectations? Firstly, I think there's some amount of short-termism. So when you're contemplating life, you're probably going to be optimistic. It's like holding a carrot to a starving pig. Your decision to continue living your life is one that will probably be more impactful in the moment, even if you because you cannot consider the fact that in the long term it'll be more painful. But moreover, I think it's very sad because of the opportunities that you continue to live. So the longer and longer you live in the virtual world, the more relationships you make, the harder it is to leave at your own will. Crucially here, I think this very well clashes with a government's points, because you really do lose autonomy when the individuals in your lives are ones you cannot say no and cannot leave. This is the decision that is incredibly difficult to make and one that will consume at your living conscience forever. The second thing then is, why exactly is choosing to end your life emotionally restricted and very difficult? I think to the most part, already proved this, but I think it's incessant to continue living because that's what humans naturally want. Why is this then harmful then? I think there are three circumstances. Firstly, either you have to make the decision to die, which is one that is incredibly difficult and will eat at your conscience. The second one is that you see those around you have to make the decision to leave. And the third one is you have to work with the other individuals around you as they make the decision. In all of these circumstances, it's probably more guilty, more painful, and more devastating to continue living this rather than choosing a natural demise, the one that you probably prepped for the past 30 years of your life, one that you're already willing to take, and one that you're already going to have. Okay, what is the upshot of this then? Firstly, I quickly want to talk about guilt. There oftentimes is a moral feeling of guilt when you choose to defy morality. Whether it's because of religion or because of what society tells you, trying to continue your life often is looked down upon. Secondly, and more importantly then, I think clearly on our side you feel more emotional pain. Because the alternative is living and dying in a life that you've expected to die in, in a life where you fundamentally value the experience you take because you know it's limited. Continue to living is one where you are unable to feel happy because every instance you live, you know that you can pick when you die, so you will never feel fulfilled and you will never value the instances you have. Quickly onto this second argument then, I think there is a sense of betrayal and guilt that you will internally have forever if you choose to do this, given the situation that you are in. And the premise of this is that in our society, it is heavily emphasized the value of one love and monogamy in your life, and this looks like things such as TV shows emphasizing one true love, like Disney from a very young age. What this ultimately means is that the societal expectations that are placed on you mean that it's very difficult for you and your wife of like 50 years who probably made the decision to not go into this world, you have to live without them, and you have to live with the guilt that they probably expected you to not cheat on them, but really you are doing. This is betrayal that will eat at you. This is betrayal that is massively harmful to your ability to live. Ultimately, I think we win this debate for two. Wait, is it time signals?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't.
Okay, well, on that basis, you're so proud to oppose.
Alright, I've had speaker for the remarks, and now to call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to deliver their speech not exceeding 5 minutes.
Just set up my time. Hello? Okay then. Hello? Okay.
You will
My
get
speech will
something
start in 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. So in the honorable path. In a world where you live a life that's so unfulfilling on side opposition, we're against that. In other spaces, we're so proud to propose it. Let me just give you some direct refutation to the entire op case we hear so far. So the first thing they tell you in a POI is that your partner won't be happy. So one of the biggest things that they said so far is simply that your past wife won't be happy that you're dating other people. I think if they truly loved you so much, one, they wouldn't oppose to your happiness, but even taking them at their best, your long-term spouse has already passed away, no longer existing in the first place. But then secondly, we just give you contention on personal relationships. I think we're able to win in terms of personal relationships on this contention. Note a key part of characterization in this one is that you're an elderly individual. You are unsure of how long you have left to live in the world. In the real world, both your child and your real long-time spouse in the real world have passed away years ago. I think it's safe to say that you miss these individuals and you love them a lot. to the point where they're the most close people that you used to have. In our world, however, you were able to find out and spark a new relationship with other people. I think this is able to fill in the gap of satisfying the need for personal relationships that we just don't get on their side of the house. You're able to experience something that God does not. Note opposition does not. I'll take that later. Note you are youthful, young, and you have full bodily autonomy over yourself, something you don't get in opposition's world. You are able to experience this novel feeling, and this especially is important as you could experience it to the same extent with the same likelihood on ops world. You could not for a few different reasons. One, it's going to be inherently harder. You have less bodily autonomy on their side of the house. You have less chances to interact with people in the first place. But even if you don't buy this, secondly, you're youthful and you're more energetic in the way you give energy off in the first place. But then op also tells us that you're going to have regrets. Know that this directly clashes with what Jia tells you so far. We should do some rebuilding and weighing as to why we win over them on that in the first place. So we inside opposition just achieve a better quality of life because we're able to give them more fulfillment. Why is this? Jia tells you we get more fulfillment in life. It's quite intuitive as to why we win in this contention. It's simply because we give you more fulfillment on side as OG. You get to live a life on your own terms. You can walk, talk, and experience things you don't get to experience otherwise on side opposition. Just think about it. You are given full bodily autonomy, something you struggle with as an elderly individual who is unsure about how long you have left to live in the real world. When you're elderly, you do not have the physical and mental capabilities or capacity to do what you want to do anymore. You may feel trapped in a body that doesn't align to do what you want or accomplish. Think about it. We get less regrets on our side of the house. You're able to complete more activities and cross things off of your bucket list. For example, that you might want to do, but you would not be able to have the ability to do. Take that later. Something exclusive to us on OG. Now, this is super relevant as many people die with regrets in the status quo. Things that they were never able to complete or do. Then they clearly outweigh off in terms of fulfillment. Okay, so then he tells you that you'll live a substantially longer life that's very, very bad. We directly take this down because we tell you that on our side of the house, that you're able to die happier simply because you can also choose to opt out whenever you want. In opposition to what, you get worse. Actually, I'll say that QI first.
If you could do everything you ever wanted for as many times as you want, wouldn't you live your life dull and emotionless because of this, rather than the experiences of actually valuing the experiences you had in your life?
Sure, I'll wait that a little more, then I'll just continue with my point. In opposition to what, you get worse autonomy and a worse quality of life overall. You get more regret as well. But on top of all of this, on our side of the house, you get to die when you achieve what you wanted to do in life. We just don't think that you get dull experiences or something that you do enjoy. You've received more, and you got to spend time with other people that you've met in this virtual business side. We think it's better to experience this thing in the first place than to not experience this at all and die with regrets that, I never did this, I never got to experience this, and I've never got to, meet X, Y, Z. You have received more, and you get to spend time with other people that you met in this virtual place. You've gotten to say goodbye to the other people surrounding yourself. So, you choose your own time to opt out. Something opposition doesn't get to receive. You don't get this decision on their side of the house. You're dying on the deathbed, but you can't choose anything. Comparatively, this is not the case on OG. You get to live for as long as you want on your own terms as a useful version of yourself, meaning you get to opt out on your own terms. On top of this, we provide to you a death where it's not physically or mentally taxing or painful. There's no desperate physical painful struggle that we get on our side of the house. Op tells us that it's hard to die on our side of the house. But what do they say? They say that there's guilt. But if you live so horribly, then you simply would opt out on our side of the house. We don't get why you wouldn't. On ops, you don't even get the choice of this in the first place. We don't think that you would get dull from all these experiences because we think it's better to experience these things in the first place than to never experience this and live a life of regret in the first place. When you die and don't get to do these things, I think your family members would also get the same regret, knowing the fact that you wanted to do this, X, Y, Z, and you didn't get to complete this in life. And we think there's regret between you and your feelings that you get overall. Now finally, op also tells us that this decision is kind of coercive in nature. But I want you to consider the long-term benefits that we gain exclusive to us. About one, they get more bodily autonomy. Two, we get more fulfillment on our side of the house. And three, we get less regret with more things to do on our side of the house. On this basis, subscribe to.
Alright, thank you for further remarks. I would now like to call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition to deliver their speech, not exceeding 5 minutes. Yeah, sure.
She can start.
Okay, keep going.
I guess while Owen is getting water, I will give a quick thank you speech. So thank you to Owen for being my partner and carrying me, although he's not here right now. I hope you heard that. Anyways, also thank you to Yellow. I hope you're somewhere here. No, yeah. And I don't know, my parents were sending me to the day class, friends. Yeah. Cool. false panacea. So first, 3 things I would like to characterize and start my speech is you probably have a pretty good life inherently because you probably have a long living spouse that you've married for a very long time, a child, all these things. And if you have the decision to whether continue this life in the virtual world or not, it probably means that your original life was pretty decent. Then, 3 things I want to prove in this speech. Number 1, how your life there is not going to be actually really fulfilling at the end of the day. 2, how you're going to inevitably want to end it and have this decision be eating on you every single day, but be unwilling to actually commit to this due to the harms that will perpetuate throughout your life there. And finally, how once you finally get to that point, the harms of this is infinitely bad, and that is not something we want to risk. So first on reputation here out of OG. So first they tell you that personal relationships are something that you're going to regret not taking the opportunity to have, and they talk a lot about regret in general, which I find quite funny, because if you are to die soon in the real world, then you're unlikely to feel any of this regret at all, and regret is something that doesn't exist on the government bench in the sense that once you die, you don't feel anything. This regret is something that infinitely exists on our side of the house, because as long as you're alive, you're always going to have these decisions, these choices that you could have made eating at your mind. They also tell you how you die with regrets because you can't do things. But the virtual world is not real. The reason why you want to do things, the reason why you have a bucket list is because you want to experience real things in the real world, and you're not going to be able to achieve this. My partner also tells you how this regret is going to be even worse on your side of the house when you can't do things. They didn't tell you that because your wife loved you, it would be okay until she's already dead. But it's exactly because she's already dead that she cannot confirm this, so this guilt is going to internally eat at you every day, and social narratives having just one soulmate is also going to follow you and further perpetuating this. Then they tell you you have autonomy, and that's important for an elderly person. But we argue that ignorance is a bliss, because death is a massive thing that having the ability to choose is not something we want. Because look, you're a white individual, and by the time that you're old, you must recognize that this death is something that's always coming at you. This is something you spend your whole entire life preparing for, and something that you accept, given that you know you don't have long to live. That being said, my partner already proves to you why this is infinitely worse on your autonomy when you're shackled to this seemingly good life, but you actually cannot leave it. And when you have this boring, saturated life that's ultimately worse, and this regret that you feel for that is going to further perpetuate throughout your life. This goes unengaged with. So first, how you're going to live with guilt and imposter syndrome. My partner already tells you how leaving your original family originally just already gives you really a massive amount of guilt, because you're probably always going to miss them. You're going to miss your original life. It's always going to be something that's not on your mind every single day. But additionally, when you're living in the body of a youth, you probably have an incredibly out-of-body experience, because that's actually not how you ended off in the real life, and it's not something that you want to do in terms of restarting, because you probably just rather just be reborn again instead. Additionally, the relationships you form that they talk to you about are also ungenuine, because they also had lives before that, they had partners before that, they had families before that, and even if you could convince yourself that you want to live this life, you won't be able to convince yourself that these people don't miss the original families they have, because you do too. Anyways, finally, this invalidates your whole entire existence. Because look, it saturates your whole entire life in a sense, and invalidates your original existence in the real world, because now you're seemingly immortal as long as you don't choose to die. And how is this so incredibly bad? Because you're going to get bored of life and live with infinite regrets, because you actually have the ability to choose to die. And once you have this mind gnawing at you every single day, because you have the ability to choose when to end it, you're going to be driven into a sense of suicidalness and depression, essentially, because you're so bored of life, and you're so bound to this place, you're going to feel a massive amount of regret. You're unable to go through with this because of the fact that people around you there now depend on you in order to continue living as well. Your existence is the reason why these relationships that you form, these people are also living there, and this is a guilt and this is a responsibility that's going to shackle you for the rest of your existence. And here is why I want to do an explicit way. Because look, when you have this ability to choose whether you live or die, and you have the ability to infinitely continue your life as long as you don't choose to die, that is when the regrets and the infinite amounts of harms are going to be perpetuated on you. We agree that yes, you might be happy for a short period of time, and you might be having certain happy moments, but these do not outweigh the harms of the regrets that you're going to inevitably feel throughout this place. Because look, when you die uncertainly, this isn't a decision you can actively make. You don't have to go through the suicidalness and the depression that leads you to this decision, and this is something that is going to ultimately lead you to a better end, because your life isn't saturated by this virtual world. Your life isn't dependent on you actively trying to end it. So you don't feel anything when you actually die, and once you're dead, none of the regrets that the government brings you exist. So when you have an infinite amount of harm that can go on in your life, this concept is something that's going to be very probable because of the fact that there are seemingly no consequences in this real life, in virtual life, because of the fact that you're basically immortal. That is when you're going to break up with your relationship living is something that is going to make you want to kill yourself even more every single day, so grab a bear.
All right, I can't speak for the remarks. I would now like to call upon a member of government to open up the closing task. Here.
Am I ready to start now?
So for now, I'm just not going to choose to use this mic since it kind of affects my hearing too. So I will now begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, my spouse and children have been deceased for over 30 years. For 30 years, I have so many regretful words I didn't get to say to my family. For 30 years, I lived in an empty, sad void. In this debate, I'll be giving a metric for this entire round. Reputation to mainly the leader of opposition's points, and after analysis, a point of my own about how this mitigates regret, and then I'll be due some way. Now let's do a metric for this round that the Prime Minister hasn't set. Protecting the best interest of this elderly person's happiness should be the scale we should be going on. As it's most important to be happy in the last few years of your life, as this elderly person doesn't even know how long they're gonna live. Now onto the reputation to OO's entire case. Now OO claims that nihilism is going to exist in this virtual world and you will not voluntarily leave. Now, the mechanization to that is because the people you live in that virtual world with are going to inherently rely on you for happiness, etc. But the thing is, natural demise is comparatively worse, as this causes anxiety and stress and confusion to when and where and how you'll die. Even if a form of nihilism exists, you still have physical autonomy and the adrenaline of a young person to still be fulfilled and happy in that world. The experience itself is inherently valuable. And the next, they claimed out how this one true love narrative exists as a societal expectation to maintain monogamy and loyalty in your previous relationship with your spouse. Now, first of all, soulmate shouldn't be defined by your longest, most recent love. This is a social construct and an expectation that no one should confine to. This restrains this individual from experiencing true happiness. Now, moving on to the after analysis of elderly people. Elderly people are old individuals that are most likely have lived enough, mainly achieved what they wanted to achieve throughout their life with their capabilities. They're most likely to be wise, rational individuals as they have many emotional experiences. Most importantly, they are regretful individuals too, because one, they've likely made many mistakes in their previous life and probably want to mitigate all these mistakes in the first place. Moving on to the comparative. In the real world, this elderly is a lonely individual. They lost their wife and child. They're likely not going to feel emotionally unfulfilled and happy. But in this virtual world, you can choose when, where, and how. Yes.
So perhaps you take in someone that you believe is going to be your soulmate. But if they do dump you, that creates a lot of emotional turmoil. Most relationships don't last. Why is this one going to be different?
Even if this relationship doesn't last, I don't think this elderly person should be focusing on this. They have basically an infinite time in this virtual world. I believe that this elderly person should be focusing on enjoying this moment with this spouse to fulfill this previous regret. Now moving on to my first point, is that mitigating regret from the past years. Think of this as a reincarnation and a second chance at life. And let's go into some training first. This elderly person lost their spouse and children. They have unsaid words, they have regretful actions, for example, not helping their wife enough, not saying enough I love you back. This new opportunity of this new person offers a chance of reconciliation with this regret in the first place. How does this arise? If the elder dies knowing that he never treated a certain person good or bad, anything regretful apparently, this regret follows him into the yes. Your relationship you have with your spouse for 30 years is something that's very difficult to replicate, and when you're unable to do so, the fulfillment that you achieve is never going to be the same. You're always going to feel worse on your side of the house. So I never really claimed that this relationship will be replicated, but somehow the mistakes you made in your previous relationships will actually be fixed, and therefore you will be more fulfilled because of that. Now moving on to how the problem arises. If the elder dies not knowing if he ever treated a person good or bad, this is important because they have a little time to live, and they should understand that they can have a second chance. Moving on to the mechanism of change here. Because the elderly person's interest in the fact that he lost people before him will cause him to have a paranoia about the past in the first place. they're a wise person in a young man's body, they probably won't make the same mistakes they made once they were legal youth. This means they're more mature in this future life, they have a better emotional life, and etc. Now onto the wedding. OJ explains the basic fulfillments of that, but we also explain why the new relationship you are starting mitigates the actual regret you had in the past. They value the personal relationships out of the gallery, but however, CG values this elderly person's biggest incentive is to erase the mistakes you've made before. To conclude this speech, I want to say that this elderly person, oh yeah, I'm so proud to propose.
All right, I'm going to take up further remarks, and I'd like to call upon a member of opposition to deliver their speech now, taking 5 minutes over here.
Shoot, sorry, give me a second. I need my card fell off.
You can take a minute.
You guys hear me clearly, dude? Like, I don't need to use my microphone, right? Cool. I hate microphones. Should I do a thank you speech? I'll do a thank you speech. Thanks, Luke, for like speaking to me every round and like maybe somewhat carrying, but whatever, it doesn't matter. You don't matter. Okay, next thing's like my friends. You know, they're all very cool. Yeah, I'll give it 3 rounds. I thank Owen for being my OO, who I'll hopefully beat out this round. Thank Raymond, not for his music, but for like just being here. And all the other judges, yes. Cool. Shit, I didn't leave my tabs. Okay, yeah, okay, cool. I'll start my time with my first word. The conception of reality that you support is based off of what you had in your previous life. It is when your parents create conceptions of reality. It's when you create conceptions of how you derive pleasure from certain things. The issue that is when the issue with comparative that like many of the proportional frameworks don't feel realistic on proposition. Your experiences from the past life are what dictates your moral standing and your understanding of happiness for yourself. We would understand you love your wife, you want to do things that you care about. Most of all is your accomplishment that you create in other life. On the comparative, man, these conceptions were not fundamental to who you are as a person. Essentially, the satisfaction you already believe in correlates to what you've done in your past life. You're unable to access that proposition. I'll do 2 things. 2 arguments. One, on how you're able to not even get fulfillment, on why the fulfillment is actually going to be a lot worse on their side, even if that happens. 2, why dying is actually a way of getting fulfillment, something that Owen never talks about. Cool. Inability to form fulfillment and bad ways to fulfillment. First part, it's not just about redundancy for your actions. It's not about like doing the same thing over again. It's not about listening to Raymond shitty music over and over again. We tell you, sorry, I didn't mean it. Okay. It's about redundancy in terms of connection, and it's not like it's like other things in life as well. I have 5 mechanisms to back this up. Cool. 1, talking with others about your past life experiences. So when you're dating someone, you probably bring up this kind of stuff. Oh, who was your life in the past, your family, things like that, right? This kind of stuff does activate cognitive appeal that Owen talks about. 2, perception of the world as not real. And so far as people living there are just trying to find ways to get fulfillment, they're likely going to be doing things that have like flings, have loads of like intercourse, whatever. Okay, whatever. And try to find as many people as possible to start a relationship, right? You're likely to get burnt out from trying to do these things, trying clubs, stuff like that, drinking stuff. You're likely to block out your experiences. No, thank you. So, and 3rd, perception of other people. You're unlikely to see them as a person to form meaningful relationships with, insofar as you know that they long for their families too. So insofar as you know that they want their ex-wife back, insofar as you know that they want their their children in the previous life back, you're unable to actually form these meaningful relationships without the dread of knowing 1, they want the other person, 2, you want your past family as well. Cool. 4, constant reminder of your family. The person in my bed could be the ex. Could be my ex-husband, could be my ex-wife, could be my child I had in my previous life, who I love so much, right? These kind of reminders is a constant guilt that actually activates whatever they tell you. That's the mechanism that actually have guilt. That's how old argument happen. Finally, you're unable to form these kind of new experiences. Your capacity for creating a change in what you perceive, I told you how to frame how the fulfillment you get is actually based on your previous life, but even just ignoring that, the capacity to change is stuck in that one city. You're unable to form no new experiences, like for example, going to travel the world, or reading new books that J.K. Rowling publishes or whatever. These kind of stuff is restricted in this space as long as you actually stay in this space. We highly impossible. I'll tell you why the comparative is just unshare way to actually cherry pick the entire motion, why that doesn't happen later. Cool. Why is the ways of fulfillment going to be bad? And why is that horrible for you as a person, not just for fulfillment, but also as a person living life and feeling the feelings that you do? Cool. 1, bad ways to find fulfillment. I think it's probably true that you can't get addicted. You can get hooked on drugs. You can get drunk and stuff like that, right? And that's probably true. What's going to happen is that once you're burnt out from other people, when you break up with like 3, 4, I don't know, however many exes you had, what happens is that you feel this kind of burnout. You want to try to mend your pain. You want to try to like do things like do drugs to hide away from the pain that you feel in the present moment. You want to do things like go to clubs. You want to constantly be drunk, constantly be high on drugs, so you don't do things. You don't feel the pain, and you don't think of your family and what your future could have been after death. This kind of stuff is horrible for you. I didn't actually pursue any real satisfaction from your life. You're unable to pursue any real fulfillment from what you do, except for things like a certain high, constantly being on cocaine, stuff like that. 2, redundancy. Redundancy in terms of experiences. This is kind of like I'll expand on this one. You're going to reach a point of peak fulfillment. You've tried everything. Insofar as like you're stuck in the city, right? You have tried things. You're probably going to try things. It's like going to a club every different night, right? You're going to like watch the sunset a few times because you're able to wake up in the morning really early or whatever. You have infinite amount of time, which is also an infinite amount of time you can reach your peak fulfillment, which is going to be horrible, and you're not unable to actually provide new fulfillment, new ways of fulfillment. 2, you've explored. Okay, I said that. 3rd, know that this is reputation of OG's uncharitable model. People will commit mass murder, mass suicide. Why is this the case? Because I think it's probably reasonable that they don't want you to like die out immediately, right? So they're gonna set things like you're gonna get respawned, you can get rebooted like in a van or something. I don't know, like once you die, right? So essentially, what happens is that when you reach this kind of fulfillment, you want to do things like I don't know, kill yourself. You want to do things like kill others, right? This kind of stuff is very realistic for several reasons. 1, the fulfillment you get is something that you need to explore something. Like, you need to explore new things to get fulfillment, right? So essentially, this kind of like killing things actually does provide certain fulfillment in terms of like killing other people, getting new experiences from that. Next, I think, okay, cool. Why does dying actually solve these problems? I don't think this is ever talked about at other team. I'll tell you this. Insofar as you don't know what death is, what can happen after, you have no clue what fulfillment can actually look like after death. So there's infinite possibilities where fulfillment can actually, where you can actually have fulfillment. But before you die, there's actually ways to actually get fulfillment by dying. 1, you think you're following your spouse, your children, so you're following what their path took. So because your love for your spouse, your children, you're likely to get fulfillment by following their path. 2, you believe that there's an opportunity to actualize love. So lost time for your family to kind of hope. Even if there's not true, there's chance, and that's how you get fulfillment. Because you believe. 3, finally, there are infinite possibilities. So for all you can know, like you can get rebooted as a child, or you can find your family and keep up against. These ideas are what gives you fulfillment when you die. These provide a happy spirit when you die.
Alright, I think that's it for the remarks. A reminder to provide contact warnings if you're talking about certain things, but no worries. Let's call upon the government whip to deliver this to client seating 5 minutes here.
Am I audible? Am I audible? I'm without the mic.
Yeah, you're good. Speak up though, because the people in the back might not be able to hear you.
Starting in 3, 2, 1. Panel, closing government team is the only team in the debate that recognizes the importance of providing a second opportunity for yourself, mitigating regrets, and creating a better future. Very proud to propose this motion today. So what will I be doing for you? I'll mainly be doing a team-by-team rundown, doing some weighing, and ultimately proving why closing government deserves to take this debate. So firstly, on to opening government, right? So to differentiate from them, right? Our opening focused more on the future of things that you want to do, right? They provided framing and but we provided framing and after analysis on your actual best interests. My partner told you that we actually have the opportunity to start over and mitigate and prevent progress. This is our differentiation, right? Why do we weigh over our opening, right? We weigh over our opening because we provided essential framing on how we provide the best outcomes for yourself and your interests, right? And we further provided a unique extension and example on how you're given the opportunity to actually mitigate regrets, learn from mistakes, and make better decisions, and ultimately create a better life for yourself within this virtual world, right? And we have higher impacts than them also because we actually get rid of the regrets that you have had for years when your wife and children passed away, right? Okay, now moving on to opening opposition. We get 2 main points, right? Not accepted, right? So first, main point on how you're not considering the long-term harms, right? So government side of this debate actually provides an opportunity for you to explore your option to get rid of guilt in this virtual world, right? OO has talked about having guilt and emotional pain from your first spouse and child. However, we see this guilt and emotional pain as like have been caused in the first place by regrets you have had in a relationship. I think my partner pretty be well characterized as this. So you will always believe that you could have done something else to make your life more fulfilling, and that these regrets will haunt you for the rest of your life until you die, right? So what does my partner tell you on this point? How do we actually mitigate this, right? My partner tells you that in the long term, you will actually have a better life and farther personal fulfillment and interest, right? Firstly, this is because you have the opportunity to start again, right? This point, like the opposition talks about, hinges on the fact that you will actually have guilt in the first place when you die, right? See, this is not mutually exclusive to either side of the debate, not accepted, because there will be regrets, there will be pain, there will actually be guilt on either side of the debate when you die. However, the regrets actually contribute the most to this, as these are the things that you could have done differently in your life to change the outcome of your emotions when your loved ones die, right? We actually believe that the opportunity to avoid the same regrets that haunt you in your relationships is exclusive to our side, because when you do eventually die, you will have a personally fulfilling life in which you are able to start a similar or different life than in the non-virtual world, right? So weighing against this point, right? We see this point as low impact because we have proved how we are less likely to die with guilt in the first place, right? And we say that this is not mutually exclusive because you can die with guilt on either side of this debate. But however, OO does not tell you how they actually achieve less guilt or mitigate it at all. And at least on our side of the house, even if there is guilt, and even if you do end up dying with guilt, and you can mitigate regrets, and you can actually know that you have made better decisions in the virtual world that farther benefit us from dying with guilt. Not accepted, right? But even if we do accept this point at its fullest ability, closing government is still outweighed, right? Like three things on this, right? Firstly, we provided character analysis saying why this is within the best interest of the character, within the actor, which is you as an elderly individual. Secondly, we tell you how we have the opportunity to mitigate this guilt in the first place. And thirdly, we tell you that we prevent dying with guilt versus dying with guilt no matter what, right? Okay, so next on the point of betrayal, right? So we believe that it is a farther betrayal of your spouse if you die regretting the things you did to them in your life, right? You will farther regret not accepting and feel worse about death, and you will feel much worse in the days until your death, right? But how do we change this on CG, right? A, we agree that guilt is going to be on either side of this debate. However, we actually give you the opportunity to focus on other aspects of life, gain happiness, and not make the same mistakes again, right? You can feel better knowing you contributed positively to your partner and child's life, right? B, even if we do accept the fact that you feel like you are betraying in your past life, we still protect your best interest, right? You can live without making the same mistakes and mitigate regrets, making you feel better than even if you did something wrong in your actual life, right? So weighing on this point, not accepted. In the counterfactual, opposition side tells you you would die having many regrets and not feeling fulfilled at all, right? Furthermore, opposition does not prove how you actually benefit yourself emotionally by allowing you to die with all your regrets and all your mistakes, which my partner characterized, right? Honestly, we see this point as very low impact because we do not see the benefit of allowing yourself to die knowing the mistakes you made and not having the opportunity to fix them in another life. Not accepted. Next, moving on to CG, my team, right? We have a main point on personal fulfillment, and we get reputation on this on how guilt prevents personal fulfillment, right? But we see that guilt is not mutually exclusive to either side of this debate. But however, on opposition side, you would die feeling guilty. On government, you would actually have to die with other opportunities of end fulfillment and the chance to actually die without guilt. So for weighing on this point, right? On opposition side, it's unlikely that you are fulfilling the best interest of yourself as an elderly person, right? Opposition tells you that guilt will prevent you from fulfilling your experiences, but we see that this actually pushes you to have farther fulfillment to prevent the same mistakes that you had in your life, right? So next, moving on to our contributions, right? We provided three main things, right? Frame on how the virtual city is likely to be an area where you can meet new people, gain new experiences, and mitigate these things, right? We also protect your best interests as an elderly person, and we had important in the actor analysis that we have seen on no other team on how we're protecting the best interests of the elderly person, right? Next, moving on to closing opposition, right? We get it when we want to how you get fulfillment by dying, right? But is dying while feeling guilty really fulfilling, right? What does my partner tell you on this, right? You feel guilty when you die. We give the opportunity to actually have another life. So why do we win, right? We win over opening because we provided a unique and impactful extension that focused more on the interests of yourself as an elderly person. And we win over opposition because we proved we protect the best interests of the elderly person that we have provided important actor analysis. Very proud to propose.
All right. Again, thank you for the remarks. And now let's call upon the opposition whip to end up the junior finals. Here.
Everybody is here is doing a thank you speech, so I have a few things to get Firstly, I would like to thank Elaine here for being my one supporter, for helping me persevere through the tough tournaments. In the last 3 tournaments, I've all broken on 8 points, or have not broken. The second thing I want to congratulate is Jared, because Jared is the one who's the true carrier of this team. And actually, I don't think Raymond music is the S word. And I think rather it's really beautiful, and I listen to it every day, and I really, really love Raymond. And the final thing is I thank God for being here. God gave me a purpose, God has a plan. Even if we don't win, that's A-okay. 3, 2, 1. On each of our deathbeds, there is a different conception of what we care about. I might care about having a relationship that was from the past. I might care about dying, and I might care about living a good life in the instances that OG cares about. But we think what is so important in this debate is how you achieve fulfillment. How you as an individual is able to conceptualize the world based off of your own premonitions and how that is able to influence individuals. This is a strategic build-up of our case that we are going to answer, because we are going to win in the mass majority of scenarios, and the ones that we don't think the specific isolations of all teams in this debate fundamentally prove its victory. I'm going to first clarify what Jared's case is and the strategic importance of it, and then go upon 3 themes. Jared's case was actually very, very strategic, and there's a lot of stuff that Jared said. Some of it was really, really unstrategic, but there's a portion of his case that is the best, and that is that there are restrictions in this space. So on both government teams, you hear narratives about wanting to have a significant other, having and restoring the ability for you to be able to find love once again. But Jared tells you a very simple paradigm, which is that your expectation of love is one that you have a wife, you have kids, and that is the world that you care about. So to actually achieve the satisfaction that is missing, you need to ensure that you were able to get without consequences. And this is also where CGK strategically falls, because even if you are able to learn from your past mistakes, those past mistakes don't guarantee success. And there's no way that you can tell within individuals, especially, what is truly missing from a relationship. Some will fail, some will succeed, and that is a pure reality that you have to deal with. And even in the cases in which they do, the very issue is that you have to live with the person for the rest of eternity. And that is an eternity of worth, and that is spending. So the end point of their case is one where they live all of their fears and live it, and they aren't able to achieve the fulfillment that they came into this world in the first place, because their freedom of fulfillment was the past life that they already had. That was the strategic importance of Jared's case, and that was the buildup of how we interacted within the route. The three clashes then in this debate. The first about autonomy over individuals. I want to note very briefly that on both sides of the house, the principal rhetoric for autonomy is just unproven. The reason for why this is the case on both opening teams is it's drastically unclear to me why I care about autonomy as an individual. So maybe it is true that I care about like things, and maybe it is true that I do care about general principle ideologies. But insofar as I think the practical outcomes of how I live my life every day is more important than my own ability to express, we would much rather have autonomy on a metric that is pertaining to a practical factor in this debate. So on principle, it's very unclear what the link is between a very arbitrary principle that individuals are able to prove and how it actually affects us. The second thing is the death versus the reality that she lived. So on our side of the house, we think that the most important portion of this debate is your death, because that is the point in which you receive the most satisfaction, those dying and those ticking moments. There's 2 things under this. The first is the world in which you do live out your life. I think OO's right in pointing out that you live a world of suffering, and you live a world in which you have no other alternative. The very simple issue is this. OO does not go through the mechanisms to tell you why strategically you will never be able to achieve the satisfaction. All they say is, yes, you may have some guilt of leaving your wife, but at some point you have to realize that there's individuals in our society who are willing to get over that. You probably had a lot of trauma. But the issue is then, your expectation of what your life truly is built off of your premonitions in the society that existed before. So your own interpretation of what is truly fulfilling to you is far worse and is far less drasticized. This is specifically better on our side of the house is because you've already lived through those premonitions. You've already had a wife, and you've already had a loving family that you cared about. And it is important at the end of your life, therefore, for when you die to be able to achieve full satisfaction, knowing that on their side of the house, the point in which you die is when you literally try to kill yourself because of your life is something that's terrible and a life that you could never prove. On our side, it is one in which you accept death, and one in which you can fully embrace it to its fullest potential. On that note, this is the most important thing in this debate because it is not contingent on any other circumstance. It's not contingent on if you want to achieve success, if you want to love your family, or if you want to move on. Those are all things that we think are arbitrary to individuals, and they pertain to each and every single individual at a very drastic rate.
I know myself as a lovely and devoted Christian that I want to have a monogamous relationship, but others might not. They care about their wives, but they also care about achieving their own satisfaction. This is a delta that you ought to point in this debate. This is a delta that proposition never proves. It's that in those specific circumstances, in the ambiguous instances in which individuals do not specifically know, we think they resort to their past life. They resort to their past life in which they are able themselves to achieve the satisfaction that they care about. They're the ones who set their past life as their precedent for what they want to accomplish in the other life. The issue then is on two folds, because firstly, the final world for government is one where you die of sorrow, and that is the experience that you go into living onto your afterlife. But the second thing you want to note here is just that, in general, this process is something that was bad, because the life that you live can never be the life that you so very care about. At the very least on our side, the point of fulfillment and the point that you ought to weigh this debate exists when you yourself are able to die with the experiences that you made along the way. So proud to oppose.
All right. Once again, congratulations to everybody for making it this far. The panel and I will leave.